In this case, I want to explain in English the tutelage action that I did in Colombia, that we did in Colombia, to United Nations and U.S. Embassy. It started this month. It was accepted at first stage. So I also want to explain about my submission of special procedures. It is the reference of this document. I did it in United Nations. So I want to explain in English what I'm trying to do with this document in order to submit it before the Summit of Human Rights. In this case, I want to talk and I want to remember about United Nations. It displayed that it is one place where the world nation can get it together, discuss common problems, and find shared solution. It is the first Latin characters that I am reading in the website, that it is a place to discuss common problems and find shared solution. In this case, I have been attempting to scale proposal to United Nations since 2 years ago, exactly since June 10 of 2022, and nobody never replies. I want to explain that in Colombia, a tutelage action is similar to a injunction in United States, and it must be solved in less than 10 days. And at this moment, for example, the only reply that I received from the Human Rights Office of United Nations in Colombia, in Medellin, I sent them the different information that I have been sending last year. The last message from them was in December 23. I sent them different documents and they say that they can help. So in this case, I want to remember the scope of them. I sent different things about my case, about my situation, about my human right violation and another people, and they only reply that they can help. In Colombia, our petition petition law legislation, it displays that it means be transferred if they can take a decision and they never make it. I want to remember the original document that was created in the December 10 of 1948. It was talking about the right to petition. The General Assembly wrote that the right of petition is an essential human right. United Nations displayed that it is an essential human right and it is violated in Colombia and overseas of United Nations. Nobody never replies a different right of petition. I have been collecting a lot of petition and nobody replies. The only message that, and the only official message that I received from United Nations are those emails, and they told me that they can help in any way. So I think that it must be considered, considering the first part of the website about United Nations. We need to discuss common problems, and I think that we can limit the discussion only to the presidents of each country, because I think that most of times they don't represent all the population, and we need to create something specific to go beyond president and politician, because at this moment, I think that most of them, and probably all of them, are part of the main of our issues, unless in Colombia, I already collected a lot of proofs about the situation, about the correlation and responsibility of politicians in the peace and the delay of sustainable development goals. So I think that it is a place to discuss common problem and find shared solution. And I have been presenting a lot of different solutions, some to different common problems, and nobody replies. So it is something important that I want to discuss and evaluate with the people in my neighbor and in the United Nations, because this document have different it was related for different United Nations organization, and I hope that with this we can discuss a specific proposal with a specific people, because nobody replies. In this case, it also was directed to different social networks, because we also did another document for them in order to contribute their contribution. For example, this document that it was also directed to the Secretary General and General Assembly, boards, committees, and collaborators of United Nations. It was in May 25, and nobody replies. So the point is that I think that we need to connect different type of leaders across the globe in order to reach these goals. I want to put the video. I want to to share again the video of what is the role of United Nations in order to remember the roots of this organization. It is very slow, my computer. I want to start it again. So it displays that it is the world's top diplomat. We can we can't limit the diplomacy only to president and to Minister of Foreign Relations, because unless in Colombia they are not representing us, and unless in Colombia I already sued them because they are not defeating our human rights across the globe. They are not representing, they are banning, and they are not going to the roots of the problem. They are talking about the most impossible job on earth. What is the most impossible job on earth? You are going to take the most, to take over. They are talking about the impossible. In this case,
is at a crossroads.
it displayed that the Secretary General can bring any threat to world peace. At this moment, we are starting peace process in Colombia with a different approach, and we would like to consider this approach. And this approach can be led by politicians and perpetrators, because they are part of the problem, in particular politicians, because most of politicians, or at least in Colombia, they are not in this position because they are altruistic or philanthropic, or because they have a real deep social consciousness. They are only in this position because they want power and or they want money, easy money, at least in Colombia, because at this moment I have been presenting a lot of proposals, and they also ignore it. They try to find how to debate it. We are trying to evaluate the proposal with the most rigorous scientific and technological, and evaluate it with the major rigor as possible. And they don't want to evaluate nothing, and they don't respect the right to petition. And in the same way, the magistrates and the judges in Colombia, they are just starting to accept some of them, but with a lot of difficulties because I have been making sues by prevarication. I don't know if this is the right translation, but the point is that they can go to jail if they don't reach it. And it is important that in order to reach the world peace, if we talk about peace and the definition of United Nations about peace, that it is not only limited to the absence of war, because we need to go deep. And if we want to improve the peace, for example, we must quantify it using the Global Peace Index, that it must be improved. But the point is that it have a lot of risk, because most of social leaders, we are going to have, and many leaders, we will have a lot of threats in order to force or to promote the strikes or to make legal action or penal action, because the people with power at this moment, they don't want a lot of changes, and it makes a lot of stress for us, and we want to discuss it in order to change the scheme for political asylum or for international security, because it is not working. And if we want to accelerate the sustainable development goals, we need to think in different type of leaders and the security standards that we must promote it in different countries, because it is a threat to world peace. At this moment, with the science and technology, most of politicians, their position are at risk, and I have been demonstrated in Colombia. For example, last year, I was part of a scandal of libels in Colombia with the media, and two women were related with digital government in Colombia, or e-government in Colombia, no, GovTech technologies. And it is a little example about the threats if we want to force the use of science, technology, and education for the world peace. So I think that in this case, a lot of things must be discussed in the Security Council, because we need to talk how we can promote the security across the globe in order to reach a more peaceful world. It is a symbol, the Secretary General of United Nations ideals. And at this case, we need to reach the ideals and to get the body of the ideals. He's an advocate for the interests of world people, not only some kind of people. And especially the poor and vulnerable. It is something, especially this population, and it is very important to remember the roots of this organization. He pledged to work for peace. We want the support to get the support for a peace process in Colombia with an alternative approach that not led by politicians, because they are part of the problem. They have a contribution for the different type of conflicts in the world, or at least in Colombia. I already collected the proof. They're denied to consider different proposals. They ban us. And maybe they are behind many threats at this moment.
These complex challenges can only inspire a humble approach. And this is
A humble approach. He's talking about humble approach.
powerful. Double efforts for the surge in diplomacy for peace, to foster trust, build confidence, identify areas of convergence, mediate in good faith, and constantly bring people together.
So I think that it is necessary to remember the main approach about United Nations, One of the main routes is related with discuss common problems and find shared solution. And we want to consider the peace process that we are proposing about the situation, and also a common problem. I want to remember an article that I read in Palladium Group related to a forecasting of social progress imperative that displayed that due to global inaction on issues such as climate change and human rights, they are correlating the inaction in climate change and human rights that we will not achieve the 2030 agenda, and it will be reached in 2082, and due to the pandemic, it could add another 10 years. So this is the main problem that we want to discuss. And in this case, I have been considering that if we want to accelerate the sustainable development goals, we need to think about the people who wants to accelerate it, because if we want to accelerate the sustainable development goals, we need to think about the human rights violation because they are displaying, and we need to think about the security, because in this case, there are a lot of groups of power who don't want to promote the human rights, and they don't want to promote the sustainable development goals. In this case, politicians are part of the problem because their business is the poor people. The politician needs ignorant people, people who are not educated, people who could be manipulated, because it is obvious they can persuade them, they can maintain them with hope, because it is easy money for them. And most of politicians never know how to make money in the private sector because they only know to talk bullshit. So it is important that at this moment we have a threat for peace, because some group of powers, such as the politician, they have a correlation to the corruption, because their business is the poor people, and they are not interested in eradicate the poverty. They need the poverty people to keep them in the power, to keep them as a gods, and it is a risk for many leaders. So it is an important point that I would like to consider in the Security Council, because we must make a global plan, or at least in Hispanic countries, the people that I have been talking most, and in this case, I am scaling it in English to another countries, because we have been talking about it in some Hispanic countries, and particularly in Colombia. And this is the approach that we are taking at this moment. We are a peace process. It is important to consider that if human rights defenders are being murdered, and in this case, I want to consider the situation in Colombia, and a report that it is the country that killed more than 55 of the cases in Latin America of human rights defenders were murdered in Colombia. So we are talking that this month will be a summit of human rights. And if you want to be a human rights defender, and if you create consciousness, it is a risk. And many people keep silent about it. And it is not only necessary to make consciousness in the population about human rights defenders. We need to promote legal actions and penal actions and legislative actions, and also strikes. So when you try to make a strike, it is a risk, and we need to make a global plan to promote temporal protection. If we start strikes, or if we make legal action or penal action, for example, in this case, that I am going to search if the right word in Colombia in English is prevarication. So in Colombia, is prevarication. It is not translated, but it is a penal crime in Colombia, and it gives 10 years of jail. I have been trying to search the word in other country, but it is when a public servant delays something related with their function, delays or denies or refuse, and I forget the other word, but it is a crime in Colombia. And we are promoting a collective and massive sues by prevarication. It is a risk, and we are planning different legal actions, collective actions, tutelage action that it is similar an injunction in United States to and complaint action that it seems that is similar in United States to mandamus, and those type of things are a risk, and we need to promote how to promote the security of the people who really want the peace in the world, because politicians don't want, most of politicians probably don't want any peace, because it is their business. Their business is the war. Their business is to create conflict between the people, to keep people asleep, to keep people ignorant, to keep people poor. And unless in Colombia, I already collected a lot of proofs, and I am silent, and I am delaying a lot of plans who could reach a grain of sand in the Sustainable Development Goals, because my life is at risk. I have been trying to take all the efforts to receive security. In this case, if I can receive security in a military base, I requested in Colombia, I trying to request it in the United States, also in El Salvador, also in Argentina, and nobody replies, because the decision is led by politicians. So in this case, I want to put it in the consideration that we need to make a program for the social leader, because behind the desk, you don't understand a lot of issues in our country. And this is something important to consider, the roots of the United Nations. And for example, the right to petition is very important to consider as a human right in the tutelage action or injunction to the United Nations that we did in Colombia. We proclaimed it in Spanish in this document. It is very important. Also, the right to peace, considered the constitutional right in Colombia, it also could be considered, because we have a lot of rights, but we don't respect it. And in this case, for example, United Nations, when it started, they displayed that the right to petition is a fundamental, is an essential human right, and it is recognized in the constitution of a great number of countries, and it is not respected. In fact, it is not respected in the United Nations itself. Nobody replies. And with this document, I only received one email with the director of Human Rights Division of United Nations in Medellin, Colombia. He only replies, David de Tundo, that they can help. That's all. And they suppose that they are defeating the human rights. I proposed them their support in the peace process that we were starting, and they say that they can help. And they say that they don't reply it, they don't transfer it because it is a right in Colombia. They don't did it in the United Nations. So I would like to try to scale the situation in English in United States and in the main headquarters in New York, in order to remember that when it started, when United Nations started, the General Assembly considered that petition is an essential human right, and United Nations are violating the right of petition. Also the same in Colombia, also the same in the United States, also the same in Argentina, also the same in El Salvador, and it is also the same in all the state of America. I have been sending to another country, for example, Spain, and nobody replies. And it displayed that it is an essential human right. So I remember the number of times that it was delayed. They decided not to take any action on this matter in that session, and they requested to the Economic and Social Council to ask the Commission on Human Rights to give further examination to the problem of petition. So since then, since December 10 of 1948, they requested to the to the Economic and Social Councils to evaluate, to ask to the Commission to Human Rights to give a further examination. I don't know what happened since then. At this moment, after we are in another century, and the human right to petition as an essential human right, it is still violated. It is not declared, it was delayed, and I think that it is very important to respect the right of petition in order to reach the Sustainable Development Goals, in order to respect the human rights and different rights. And I think that it is something important to consider and to discuss at this moment of humanity, because it is related with human rights. It is a global challenge. We are talking that we are not going to reach the Sustainable Development Goals on 2030. And I have been seeing that United Nations are trying to create different tools and different divisions to reach the Sustainable Development Goals, but I am not seeing any forecast about it. And I think that it is something important to discuss. I am seeing a program, the Partnership Accelerator, in order to reach the agenda. I am going to send this document to this email, Mr. Ola Goranson, because she's the Division for Sustainable Development Goals, in order to reach it. 6 months ago, we wrote a global call to action to create tools to accelerate the Sustainable Development Goals. It is very important. The information and communication technologies are very important. We need to create more tools, and in a very, very deep way. And I would like to consider that I can donate potential patents or technologies, or what we need to do to make it real. For example, creating mindset, that it is an initiative that I have been trying to scale it through different people. I'm trying to make it real through big tech, and nobody consider the importance of connect humanity by compatibility in problems and goals. United Nations talk about problems and goals. It is in the roots. It is the place to discuss common problems. It is to discuss and find shared solution. We need to create tools to connect humanity by compatibility in problems and goals. And not only problems. Concerning the problem, I have been evaluating 3 scenarios for problems. You can connect with a person or organization who have the same problem. You can also connect with a organization or person who are interested in the same problem. It doesn't matter if they have the solution or if they have the problem. We need to go deep about the problems, and we can connect with a person or an organization who can solve the problem. There are 3 criteria of matching to reach the common problems, and I think to accelerate the Sustainable Development Goals, we need to promote the connection of people and organizations by compatibility in goals and problems to solve. And it is a social network that I have been proposing more than 3 years ago, and it have not been possible to receive the support to make it real. And it is something related with the United Nations. And it is very, very important for peace, that it is one of the roots of the United Nations. And we are not coherent. United Nations is not coherent with the roots. And I want to remember it, by the values in China, We need to also to connect people and organizations by compatibility in values and interests. We need to make this kind of tools, and we can make it real if we create social network and if we improve social networks in order to accelerate it, because we are isolated. We need to evolve the web, and I have been making research, I had ideas, and any of the people who have the power at the moment, they only ignores and ignores and ignores. And don't forget, United Nations declares when it started that petition are an essential human right. It is not recognized in the 30 human rights, but it was delayed because it was displayed as a problem. It is a problem itself in the United Nations. It is violated in the United Nations. I have been collecting proof that the violation of the right of a petition affect the other rights, and it also affect the sustainable development goals. So I would like to consider this document. It is a supplicate. In order to accelerate my work, I need security because it is a risk. If we want to accelerate the sustainable development goals, you must fight with different group of power, with different mafias, particularly in Colombia, and it is not a game. It is not the Disney movie of, we are not living in the Disney movie that we created about Colombia with the name Encanto. We are in a very, very risky country. We are in the last position in the Global Peace Index, and we need to consider it. For example, Sustainable Development for Goal 4, education, quality education. If you want to reduce it, it is relatively obvious, but if you want to reduce zero hunger and no poverty, you must improve the education of the people, and politicians are not interested in quality of education of the people, and many group of powers are not interested in it because they have the poverty as a business. So if you are clear about this situation, you must take measures to fight with in order to reach this goal, because it is not a game. Human rights defenders in Colombia, and I am not displaying, I am opening news from, for example, from Amnesty, and Colombia defender remains at risk. It is another new, and it is not a game. So we need to think about a global security program for the human rights defenders, for different type of people who wants to reach the sustainable development goals, because we need to consider the people who make Suez, the people who make also monitoring of the resources, for example, it is also a risk, and we must consider it. So I hope that we can discuss it, we can scale it in the petition of the tutelage action. We must talk specifically with different type of United Nations because it was accepted. I also did a submission to special procedures. It is something important. I also requested a provisional measure in Inter-American Court of Human Rights in order to consider my case. I am tired of requested for security. I am tired of requesting for support in order to accelerate the sustainable goals, to respect the human rights, to respect the constitutional rights, and any decision maker wants to support it. At this moment, I am supplicating the United States to continue with my political asylum process, and nobody replied. They say that they haven't received nothing. I requested a referral for refugee status to United Nations, and they never replied. It is the proof. I requested them, I sent them this email in Colombia, and they say that they can support. I don't know if the United Nations section of human rights defenders in Colombia, they say that they can support. Who can support? If we are trying to promote a peace process in Colombia and United Nations replies that they can support, it makes any sense. And it is something important to discuss, because we must consider it. So I think that for the moment I am going to finish it, and I hope I could participate in the summit, that we can discuss common problem with United Nations, because those are the roots. All the president don't have the solution. One place, it say that it is one place where the world nation can get it together, discuss common problems and find solution. Politicians itself are a problem. It is a problem. They are not representing us. If you listen the speech of Colombian president, that he is very corrupt, that I was a witness of corruption acts during their campaign, and nobody makes nothing. He was talking on behalf the guerrillas, because if you analyze his speech, he was requesting an international support for ex-combatants of FARC guerrilla group, and he don't request it for all the people at risk. He only talked that they are being murdered, that they are at risk, that he's going to create an special area in the prosecutor office, and he's proposing an international partnership to conduct the research, but only for them. In the peace process that he's talking with guerrilla group, he's only talking to protect the ex-combatant, and he was part of a guerrilla group. And at this moment, there are a lot of people who believe that he's representing some people, and it is just bullshit. He is not representing them. For example, he's talking about the Amazonas, that he's very worried about the Amazonas, and we have been meetings with people who are living in Amazonas region, and he in 4 times he don't receive them. They make an agenda to visit them, and he's not visiting the people in Amazonas. He's not listening their problems. He's not searching for solution. He's ignoring a lot of proposals. He's ignoring the judges and magistrates made the same. At this moment in Colombia, we are proposing a reform in the justice system, because it is very, very corrupt, very, very corrupt. We are proposing a constitution reform, and the president is proposing some things, and the communication channels, the media, is banning me. They are promoting only libels about me, and it is a risk with the current group of power. So it is a threat for the peace, because we are also considering alternative solution for the narco traffic, and it is a risk because politicians in Colombia and narco traffic are very, very correlated. And if we want to fight this problem, because narco traffic is a global problem, because most of criminal groups, they are sustained by narco traffic finances, and we are part of the problem in Colombia, and we need to find shared solution, and the solution will probably not only represented by the presidents, and I think that United Nations might open the doors to different type of leaders, not only president, because unless in Colombia, the current president is not representing me, is not representing many people, is not representing many people who believe that he is really representing, and he is in this position in a corrupt way. I already collected the proof. I proposed how to collect more proofs, and nobody wants to make a political judge. I don't know that the right translation, but he must be removed by law, because he violated the limit of expenses in his campaign. He don't report a lot of expenses. In Colombia, it is a constitution article, and the Congress, with the House of Representatives, don't want to remove it. And it is, for example, another reason to change the scheme to remove or to investigate a president, because in our constitution it makes no sense, and we need to change it, unless in Colombia. And in this case, I hope United Nations, I don't know any place to go right now. I would like to find the support, because I think that at this moment it's the more neutral organization who can scale my case. I already made the process for a special procedure. I hope that it could be considered, it must be considered in the special procedure, that in my case, I already submitted my case in the Refugees Agency of United Nations. They don't make nothing, and it is very serious and important. I already scaled it here in the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, and nobody replied. So I hope that it must be considered to make a security program. At least in my case, I could help to find solution to each one of the sustainable development goals, to different problems. We must connect the leaders, we must connect the organization in a very deep way. And nobody replied, because the right of petition is a violated right, and it is violated in the United Nations itself. And the United Nations, after the World War II, considered that the right of petition is an essential human right. It was not invented by me. It was considered in December 10 of 1948, and it was delayed, and we have been waiting a lot of time for this right, and it keeps delayed. And I think that it is important. So I hope we can receive our, we don't only need to be heard, we need to take decision. That's the most important thing that we must consider it in this case. We must take decision about narco traffic, about the peace, about the peace process, about how to tackle the finances of the criminal groups, about how to tackle the interests of politicians, because they don't represent us. They only persuade ignorant people, and it is something that must be considered at this moment, because it could increase the number of dead people, of threatened people, of silent people who never fight, because they are scared about the consequences to make sues, to make criminal reports, and this like that. And we must consider it in how the corruption, the prevarication, how the security program affect the reach of sustainable development goals. Because also we need to connect all the different solutions for each one of the goals. And we must create a global fund to promote the research for different technologies. For example, for the clean water, we must promote how to clean the water. We must promote how to reduce the climate change, the creation of energy. We need to assign a lot of taxes. And if we could create a global tax for environmental solution and different solution, it must be considered. I think that it is something that must be considered in order to reach it. In this case, one of the development goals is peace and a strong institution. And if you want to promote peace, you are going to you will be against the interests of different groups of power and different criminals. So it is something very important that you only can understand in a deep way when you try to promote consciousness about human rights, to promote solutions, to connect people. If you try to connect people, it becomes a risk, and it is something very important. And we need to talk the discussion with different global leaders in technology, because we need to improve the current social network in order to reach the sustainable development goals. I hope that we can make a discussion of September 25 to September 27 related with the sustainable development goals. And I hope that I don't believe it, but I hope that I could participate in the summit, that I could receive the compensation, because I am going to return it in order to scale up this proposal with the United Nations, because I want to put my grain of sand in the evolution of our civilization to reach the Sustainable Development Goals, but United Nations ignores me. It seems that I am not a human. It seems that I am an animal or an alien, that I don't have human rights. But human rights, United Nations itself is violating the human rights, because I am being discriminated, and it is a human right. Everyone is entitled to all the rights set in this declaration without discussion of any kind, because I am Latin, because my political or other opinion or national origin, because I'm from Colombia, because I'm from the third world, I am being ignored, and it is a violation with my human right in the United Nations itself, because I am trying to discuss different solutions, different approach for specific problems, and the creation of digital tools to improve, to accelerate the development of sustainable development goals and the discussion of human rights. And I think that we must discuss and upgrade the human rights for the reality of this century. There are a lot of ambiguity and something important in the Human Rights Declaration that I remember, that is the right 29th, that no, the Article 22, everyone is entitled to a social and international order in which the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration can be fully realized. We need an international order in order, for example, something specific, to consider the right of petition, because it is a right in Colombia, it is not respected in Colombia, and it was considered as an essential human right when we started this declaration, and it has been delayed, and it is still delayed, and nobody in the United Nations wants to make anything about it. And in this document, I remember that I put the number of years and seconds and minutes and weeks that we are waiting for the request, that in the section 267, we have been waiting 75.57 years. We have been waiting all of these years with the petition of the General Assembly about the right to petition, that it must be discussed, and it has been discussed. 906.83 months, 3,943 weeks, 27,601 days. We have been waiting more there, and in the same way, hours and minutes, and I wrote it in this proclamation that it must be considered. And we are waiting. So I hope I could participate in the summit. I hope I could continue with my asylum case, or because it is another right, we must enjoy our asylum, and I was not enjoying it. And I think that it is very important, because at this moment, I am at risk in Colombia. United Nations must respect, because no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his property. At this moment, United States has my passport and my Colombian ID, and they don't want to return it. They stole or lost my it is not recording, my bag, and they don't want to pay it, and it is a human right, and the United Nations is not proposing to defend the human right, and it is the same with a lot of people. So I hope we can consider it because it is not being transcribed with artificial intelligence. Thank you so much. It is July 13 on Saturday at 70:88 and 58 seconds.